Hello and welcome back to the show. Today, I have a very special episode. We have a guest speaker, Kiara. She is a friend of mine who is also an accredited exercise physiologist who has established herself as a women's health EP. And I wanted to bring her on the show because her story is quite similar to mine in a sense of establishing herself as a women's health specialist. And I think it's really important that for those of you who really want to understand what that looks like in terms of a journey, how to get there and what we did, I think it's really cool to hear about other people's stories and how that worked out for them. So today we're talking about that. We're talking about the mindset behind business. We're talking about how to establish yourself as a women's health specialist. We're also talking a little bit about her let's say career plans or pathway that's coming up. And yeah, we just talk a little bit about everything, which is, I think, really, really cool. So with that, we'll get started on today's episode. Enjoy. Hello, Kiara. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Yeah, I'm really, really great. I am excited about this chat today because I feel like I followed you on Instagram for a while when I was working in-person clinic. And I was like, oh, another like single as in sole trader, like single, not like not married single, but like a single sole trader EP, like doing women's health. And like, I wish she didn't live in South Australia and we could be friends. And I'm pretty sure we just stayed friends. Like I just stalked you for a while and like we used to interact. And then I'm like, do you want to be friends? And sent you a DM. I was just like slid on in. Um, so we actually it went well. I feel like it went well. We're still talking. So
I think it's going well.
we're on a little bit more of a personal relationship now outside of Instagram. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. I'm excited to talk about this because it's all things like women's health, mostly around your career and building your own reputation. So tell us just a little bit about you. Who tell me tell us about you.
Sure. So, yeah, as you said, I am based in South Australia. I am an accredited exercise physiologist. I then went on to do my master's in women's health medicine as well. So I work clinically. All my work is within women's health. So endo PCOS, pelvic floor, pregnancy, chronic pain, all of that kind of stuff. And I also lecture at Flinders Uni here in Adelaide and have just started research as well.
So doing a lot.
Yeah,
So
have my
many.
finger in a few pies.
Same.
Yeah.
I'm not as many as you though, I don't think. I feel like mine's just like different types of things related to clinical work, but
Yeah.
I can relate to being like, oh, we'll just do a little bit of this and just do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So when did you actually graduate from uni? Do you remember?
2000, I finished 2017, end of 2017.
2017. Oh, I think that might be the same year I did. I can
No,
never remember if my graduation ceremony was in 2017 or
mine
if
was
it
the next
was
year after.
the year
Definitely
after
wasn't.
and I
Yeah.
finished in 2017.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it confuses me as well.
I'm like somewhere around that seven
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I like have to count on my fingers to be like, how many years have I been out?
Yeah.
But or I go back to my photo albums and look for the pictures. I'm like, what year was that?
Yes. I remember from my uni jumper, they gave us the
Oh, you got a
year
year.
we graduated.
Oh,
That's the only reason I know. Yeah.
that's like a year 12 jersey from school and you have
Yeah.
like, I'm
That's
sad.
what it's like. Yeah.
That's actually so funny. I never got a uni jumper. That's a bit sad. I'll have to make one. Just put my
Yeah.
own dates on there.
Backdated.
Um, backdate it. So funny. So I'd love to know, like, how did you, like, you work to, like, so currently your clinical role, let's talk about your clinical role. What does that look like from like, what type of role you have, but also you are a sole trader or you're a company. You're just working by yourself now, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So tell us about the journey of how you got to where you are.
Yeah. Well, straight out of uni, I went and worked for a private musculoskeletal practice, knowing that that my passion was within women's health. And I brought it to them and just said, "Hey, I'm interested in this. Is there anyone to support me, or can you give me any resources to develop my skills in this way?" And I was pretty quickly shut down.
Oh,
Yeah.
was this a
So
physio clinic or an EP clinic?
no, it was an EP clinic.
Oh, really?
I know,
Wow.
sad. That's probably actually what drove me to pursue it even stronger, because I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, I was really new, so I didn't really like, that was the first time really that I properly asked about it being accredited.
Mm.
So I just on the side started seeing some women's health clients. Ended up like started as a sole trader, got myself a name, so Seed Exercise Physiology. After work, I'd see a couple of clients. On the weekend, like on a Saturday morning, I'd see a couple of clients, and just slowly developed my, I guess, client base.
Was this
um,
was this out of a house?
Out of the
Like, did
house.
you have like I remember your clinic before you moved into like the clinic space. There was like a
Oh,
room that you were in.
yeah,
This is
yes. So
how far back our friendship goes on Instagram.
yeah. So it was an old house that was uh an osteopath clinic.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
it was an old house, and they had, yeah, an osteo in there, like a couple of osteos in there, and then I was out back.
Was
So
it like
yeah,
a long room?
it was a long room.
It was a
Yeah,
long room. I
yeah,
remember.
yeah. It was
My
a long,
store.
skinny room. It was not the best, but we made it work.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool.
that's how
Yeah.
I did that. And then just slowly grew until I could take away from the other people that I was working from and place more of my time to seeing the clients that I'd built up. So that's how I got into, like, that's how I started my own, I guess, business. But in terms of like my, like the area of women's health, it, like I said, I kind of just always knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't realize how underserviced it was until I
Mm.
actually got in there. It was more like I initially just viewed women's health as, it is a big umbrella term. Like when someone says women's health, it's really hard to know what they actually mean by that, because women's health is huge. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's just like saying, yeah, wellness, which, what does wellness actually mean? Like, some people interpret wellness as mental health, some people interpret wellness as taking lots of herbs, some people interpret it as exercising a lot. Like, I
Yeah.
just find women's health, it can be the same. Like, to some people, it only means pregnancy. And then to other people, it might only mean pelvic floor. So that I don't think I realized that when I first went in. And then I started to, like I said, realize how like underserviced it was, and how much information that wasn't there, and how many women were not being given the care that they needed, or for as long as they needed, or being able to find the right practitioner. So that once I started realizing that, just from clients either telling me or me trying to find out more information, that kind of made me even more passionate about it, I think, because I was like, okay,
Mm.
I'm going to do something to change this. I want to give these women an option. I want to give them something that will actually help them,
Yeah.
evidence-based treatment, all of that kind of stuff. I want to fill this gap. And that has been underlying thing that's really driven me all the way up until now.
It's funny that you say that because I think I was the same. I remember posting a poll on my Instagram story about if I was, if you were looking for help for your pelvic floor, would women's health resonate with you more or would pelvic health resonate with you more? Like, would you actually know what I meant if I wrote pelvic health versus women's health? Because for me, women's health was always pelvic floor. Like, that's what I
Yeah.
assumed the definition I associated with it. And it wasn't until someone was like, "Oh, that means you do like on like breast cancer," and I was like, "Oh,
Yes.
no, like no,
Yeah.
that's not women's health to me," but it actually
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
And I can fully relate once you're in it. You're like kind of see that a little bit more.
Mm.
And I think it was also me getting into more women's health. Like I loved health, and I was a like personal trainer, so I was
Mm.
training women. and then being like, I love training women and teaching them about their bodies from like a, macronutrient thing and menstrual cycle side and weight loss versus muscle gain and that type of thing. So it naturally went down that path as an EP. But once I was like, oh my gosh, all these people have these problems and they didn't even know they could do anything about it. Your passion goes from teaching about this to helping people actually find you and actually
Yes.
giving people the chance to fix their problems. And that's how I kind of feel now with being online. It's like
Yes.
there's all these people that can now access this care. And I'm so passionate about helping them. But I like the women's health is still passionate, but it's like the passion's a bit shifted. Like
Yep.
it is
Yep.
interesting, isn't it? And did you see many women's health clients in the private practice?
Um, you know what? I would have, but because the way their initial assessments and appointments were structured, there was no room for me to actually find out. So I
Oh,
remember
wow.
one time when I did an initial assessment, this lady, which is actually quite rare, just disclosed to me that she had incontinence, and I was
Mm,
like, oh my God, I'm so unequipped to do anything about this, but I'm so glad she told me.
mm,
And I wrote it down on the initial assessment note. And that's as far as it went because I had no support to do anything about it. There was nothing in place within that clinic to even deal with that or, you know, really to acknowledge it again. So I would have been
yeah.
seeing these clients and like people who like other EPs and health professionals who work with people. You are seeing women's health clients. It just depends on the questions you're asking.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about forms I've actually used before from like other people's businesses where I'm like, there's not even like, where do I even write incontinence on the screening
Yeah,
form?
yeah.
Like, there's
It's
like, do
like
I put
it's
it in the
almost like
musculoskeletal
we've
injury?
grown ups. Yeah,
Yeah. Like little at the bottom, like note has incontinence.
yeah,
Whereas like my whole screening form is now is literally that. Like it's just
yeah,
if someone had something outside of that, I'm like, oh, other medical condition.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you didn't have any knowledge around pelvic floor rehab or like exercise for pelvic floor or incontinence at that point?
no, not really, apart from just the very basics that I knew. I was really lucky.
Kegels.
My mum, yeah, my mum was always onto that kind of stuff. So
Mm,
she would always be like, oh, I'm doing this, like she'd be lying on the floor doing an exercise. I remember once, and I was like, oh, what's that for? Like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm doing pelvic floor exercise. So that word
yeah.
and the, I guess, action of doing something about it has always been normal to me, even though I didn't know the ins and outs of it. I knew that there was ways that it could be treated and helped.
Yep.
So I knew the very, very basics and things like, intra-abdominal pressure, exhale with effort, and then obviously like the Kegels, like everyone knows that word. But extra to that, I didn't know, I didn't really know how to properly cue someone. I didn't know how to tell whether they were doing it right or wrong. I could give very, very basic information about it, but as soon as someone reported something that was outside of what I had very basically known or seen, I was lost. And that
Yeah.
frustrated me. And I think that's why that was another driver for me to be like, right, I'm not going to let this frustrate me. I'm not going to be that person that lets this woman walk out again without having a solution.
Yeah. Wow. That's like, I hear that same story for everyone who's like kind of reaching out to me for education with like, I just know how to get them through basically the first consult and then I don't really know what else to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I kind of know that you need to strengthen everything, but I don't really know what to give
Yeah.
them to do that. Which is obviously a bit of my passion is to like help other clinicians be able to do this. So,
Yeah.
like, let's just talk a little bit about that. How did you actually grow your knowledge then in women's health?
Yeah. This question's always hard to answer. I know you probably find the same,
Yeah.
Courtney. um, a lot of it, a lot of it was trial and error, and a lot of it was anecdotal. So I would actually say, yeah, a
Same.
lot of, yeah, I'd say majority actually was listening to the woman and responding to her. So, you can Google or look up, just say symptoms of endometriosis, but until you actually start working with these women and have them tell you what their symptoms are, a lot of those symptoms are not on the list of Jean Hales or something like that. So
Mm.
that's how I grew my skill set, was trying something, asking them how it felt, and leaving it with them for a little bit, getting them to come back. And I was more on the conservative end because of the lack of research. I would
Mhm.
always try and research something before in the databases that we have access to. But there's very minimal, it's very unspecific. The research is not robust. It's old. It's not applicable.
Yep.
I think, Courtney, you said it on I can't remember, maybe it was your last podcast episode about when you read research, they don't tell you what the exercise protocols are.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you're left thinking, oh, okay, that's great. It worked. But what did you actually do?
Yeah, I know. That was in my research spotlight email that went
Yeah.
out. And then I did the recap in the podcast. And I remember being like, I'm sharing every single exercise that they did in this
Yeah.
because there's nothing worse than being like, oh, they did a progressive program. Cool. What was the program? And it's just like, that's it.
Nothing. Yeah. Nothing.
Cool. Thanks for telling me what you did.
Yeah.
Like, can't
Yeah.
apply this research. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you say that you trialed and errored. I did that with so many clients. Like, I was so lucky that my clients were like, I had kind of a half caseload of personal training clients, really, for like really specific. Like, they kind of went through the care, like the rehab care side, and they're like, "Can we just keep training?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
Um, so I'd be like, "Hey, I've seen this like new exercise, and it's supposed to help with like this hip thing, which I
Yeah.
think it might help. Like, do you want to try it?" And they'd
Yeah.
be like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, okay."
Yeah.
And they just built the trust. Yeah.
Yeah, that exactly. Like, I think that is the biggest thing. If the woman trusts you and
Mm.
knows that you have her best interests at heart, you are listening to her, you have the skills there, or the want to learn, that makes a big difference. Like if I'm thinking, like if I went to just say a massage therapist and they said, "Hey, I've seen this new technique. I would really love to try it out on you," and I'd already trusted her, but go for it. Go for
Yeah,
it.
same.
Like, please. I'll come back. I'll let you know how it goes and we can work on it together. Like, I think if you have that trust and you are open to learning, then a lot of people will be acceptive of that. Like,
Yeah.
the worst that can happen is they come back and they'd be like, "Hey, it didn't help, or it made my symptoms worse." And that's okay, because okay, we need to dial it down a little bit, or we need to change completely, or I need to look at another area, but at least you're doing something to try and help, rather than just be like, "Oh, well, okay, hands off." Like, I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything
Yep.
else.
Yep. I can totally agree with that. It's so nice to hear that other people did this because I'm like, am I just like doing things
Yeah.
I shouldn't be doing?
They're going to take my
Um,
accreditation away.
yeah, like anyone listening to this is just don't listen to that bit.
Yeah.
We still get good results now and it worked, so we're good. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, I mean, even now though, like it's such a individualized thing that even if you gave them everything that was backed by the research, it could still just do nothing or make things worse for that person anyway. Like
Yeah.
everyone responds so differently. So I'm a big believer in the trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, have some research obviously to back why you're doing it. But
Mm,
I definitely have grown a lot of my knowledge that way. So when
mm.
you even look at like other health conditions for like PCOS and things like, do you do much in the oncology space?
No, not a lot.
Not a lot. Yep. So yours is mostly like pregnancy, like pelvic floor,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yep. Um, did you just do a lot of reading on your own and like finding resources and then trying to like put it all together?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it was anything I could get my hands on, and a lot of it was probably around the pathophysiology of
Yeah.
a condition, because then I think you can start to make connections between things. Use clinical justification, and start to develop your own style. Um, so yes, it was just looking at reading, looking at a lot of the research,
Mm,
doing whatever PD I could get my hands on,
yep.
whether it was good or bad. At least I had some exposure to it. Asking women again, like, what has worked for them in the past, what hasn't worked for them. I
Mm,
spent a lot of my time early on actually meeting with other allied health practitioners that were in the women's health space.
okay.
So whether it be like a pelvic floor physio, or I think I met with some gynaes, but that actually didn't turn out to be too helpful in the end.
Was that mostly for education stuff, like treatment wise, or was that just connecting, like for networking?
It was more connecting for networking, but
Yeah.
I would also ask, like, what do you need? Where do you find like the gap is in terms of
Mm.
care? Like, what do you offer? And then what do you do after you have discharged this client? So, for example, like pelvic, when I saw a pelvic floor physio, I asked her that question, and it was kind of just like she would use either dilators or internal trigger points on the pelvic floor, and
Mm.
then that's as far as she went. She was really old school, so she didn't actually know what an exercise physiologist was or where we even fit in. So I spent a lot of that appointment meeting actually trying to tell her what an exercise physiologist was, just basically.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So yes, sorry, to answer your question, mainly just reading what I could, doing as many PDs that I could, and then trying what I had read or what I'd seen in the PD and adapting it to the woman.
Yep. Yep. So once you got all your knowledge and you started to work for yourself, like doing, because I'm assuming it was like on the side of your
Yeah.
Musk job. How did you start developing the reputation of being like a women's health specific EP? I know that's a question I get quite a lot of, like, how can I build my reputation as this in whatever way that looks like for somebody? But like you built up Seed, which was basically a women's health service, really, wasn't it? Like that's what it is. Yeah. So how did you do that?
I think it's just sticking to it. So I
Yes. It's a great
unfortunately
tip.
there's no like sparkly answer. But yeah, I didn't stray away from being specific in women's health. There were a lot of people who said, oh, you know, you're cutting out a lot of revenue, you're cutting out a lot of like, yeah, potential clients. Why don't you just see men? Like, can you just see my husband? Can you just see my mate who's got back pain? Like, I just stuck to my guns and I was like, no, this is what I want to do. And this is this, like, I'm not gonna bend, because as soon as you bend for, you know, someone's husband's mate something, then it just, you know, you go, oh well, whatever, I'll just see everyone anyway.
Yep.
So I just stuck to my lane. And once those women started getting results, started to feel cared for, they would go back and tell their GP, or they would go back and tell their friends.
Yep.
And as well as like I did use social media, things like Instagram and Facebook, just try to push it out there a little bit more. And going into, again, like when I started, I did a lot of networking, like a lot more than I do now. And just said, this is who I am, this is what I do, these are my pamphlets. I spent time on my website, so when people landed on my website, it looked professional, it looked like I knew what I
Yeah.
was doing.
You had a good website. I remember looking at it when I was like,
Oh,
who is this?
yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. I didn't do that myself. It would not look like
Oh,
that if I did that myself.
um, it's so funny that you've said all this because I had exactly the same experience. I remember, so quick rundown of me, but I originally started my business. I had this personal training brand called Curls for Girls.
I love
Girls
that.
for Girls Fitness, and it was like group fitness classes in the dingy gym that I worked at. And then when I moved into the exercise physiology world, I was like, I need something a bit more professional than Curls for Girls. Even though it was like so cool, I'd totally go
That's
back to
a cool name.
yeah, I know. I'm like secretly probably rebrand. But yeah. And so I went into the physio clinic and the physiotherapist there, like I was saying, I really want my business to be called Her Exercise Physiology. This is what I want to do. And he was like, you've just cut out 50% of the market. Like you're cutting all the men out. Like, what if they want to see you? That's going to feel really emasculating. So I actually named my business In Balance Exercise Physiology. And I had this teal colored branding and it was like In Balance and it was supposed to be like Musk thing. And I had it for 3 months and I was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I
Oh
had
wow.
like,
There you go.
yeah. And I was like, why am I doing this? I'm just doing this because like someone else told me to do this. And I was like, scrapped it, deleted it. Like I paid all this money to get branding
Oh,
done. And then I was like, I'm doing Her Exercise Physiology. I don't care what you say. I don't want to train men. I don't want all of the annoying EPC plans for like all the
oh,
other issues that I just don't care about.
yeah.
And then I went down Her Exercise Physiology and he was still trying to send me men. And I was just like, I'm not seeing
Oh,
them. Like, why? But like you
yeah.
said, you just have to actually do it and stick to it.
Yeah.
And then your word of mouth is like, I feel like word of mouth for you was a big thing.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I'm
think,
so proud of you for sticking to it. I didn't. I fell
yeah,
for
no,
it. Great
but
brand.
do you know what? Isn't that such a typical story? Like, a man, how dare you emasculate a man? You should
I
change
know.
to make sure he doesn't feel
He
emasculated.
should feel included.
Yeah, yeah.
Righto, mate.
Poor
Whatever.
thing. Oh man.
Don't want to offend him.
Yeah, better not.
Yeah. I mean, you
Yes.
could do that. I could do like we could do men's pelvic health, really. There's a
Mm,
space for that. But
yeah.
anyway, so you don't really do much as well, you're not really, I mean, your business is pretty good now. It's like you got a big referral network coming in, and I mean, you do a lot of other things anyway. But in a sense of the business side, like if you were to give out some tips,
Mm.
hints for anyone who was thinking about doing their own thing, whether that's like going out on their own or whether they're like, no, I'm doing everything at the moment, all the things that I want to do women's health specific, like, I'm a bit about the mindset and business side too. So I like to share a bit of that. Okay, what would you say? What would be your biggest tips for them?
Mm. Definitely follow your passion. I know that sounds so cringe. But if you do something because you feel like you should be doing it, it's just gonna end badly for you. As in, like you're either going to be unhappy, you're going to be stressed, you're going to have to juggle a few things. Your passion for your job may start to die. So if you know that you have an interest area, um, even if it's between two things like women's health and cardiac rehab or something like that, and those are your two interest areas, make sure you fill some of your weeks with that, because that'll keep your passion going. And when you are passionate about something, people see that,
Oh,
and it either attracts clients, it attracts employers, it attracts opportunities for you, because you're more open to receiving that kind of input from people and from opportunities. So, even if you're not in the ideal workspace for being in women's health or something else that you're passionate about, if you fill your days or your weeks with some type of that,
mm,
then, it'll just start slowly building, and you'll see a little bit more consistency. You will be a little bit more motivated to then chase that type of clientele or that type of work. And when you are more motivated, again, you seek out more opportunities. So whether that's, then you start to consider, okay, am I in the right workplace to support me doing this? Or am I working for the right person? Or am I in the right industry? Is my work-life balance okay? Do I need to change the way that I'm marketing? And I think sometimes that just naturally happens anyway. Like if you
mm,
take marketing for example, if you are an exercise physiologist who has a page, like an Instagram page dedicated to exercise physiology work, whether that's just, general information or videos of like client progress, you will notice that it'll slowly start to morph into what you're passionate about. So
yeah.
it might slowly start to pick up more women's health on your page. Then people go, oh, I have that as well. Or I can see she's interested in women's health. She's been, posting about that a few times in the last month. So I think that, just identifying what you are passionate about, where you want to stick most of your energy, because we only have a finite amount of energy. And a lot of that, 5 days of the week we're at work. So you want to make sure that your energy is well placed to then take care of yourself when you're not at work and you look forward to going back to work on Monday.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's nice to hear you say like it takes time and it can be slow, but
Mm,
because I feel like there's a massive push on like I see it on social media all the time to just be like, just do what makes you happy, cut
mm.
everything and just go all in on yourself. And I'm like, sometimes that's not viable. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Especially now, like, yeah, it'd be so great to say, yeah, it happens overnight. Like it happens whether that be with business or with clients. Like I can fix your problems overnight, but it doesn't. It takes investment, and I think a really good example of that is when you're creating an exercise treatment, exercise intervention for someone. There is no way any of us, if you're a good practitioner, would say, hey, if you do this exercise once or two times, you're going to be fixed for the rest of your life.
yeah.
And it goes the same with business. Like you can't just do something or knock at some door once, twice, and then that's it for the rest of your life. Like you need to keep doing it. It needs to be something that is sustainable and that you keep working on.
Yeah. And evolve it as you kind of
Yeah.
like it unfolds. Cause I don't know about you. Well, you've probably seen my journey, but it always shifts because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like not really feeling right now. I'm going to like
Yeah.
add this in or like change this to serve for this purpose. So
Yeah.
it can completely change. So I think if you
Yeah.
picked one thing and went straight for it, sometimes it's like, ugh, not so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what you did. I was pretty much in from the get-go. I didn't really do another job, but I was
Mm,
also building up personal training skills when I was at uni. So I
mm,
think I already had that base there and then added in sort of like the EP layer on top of that after a while. So it kind of worked a bit like that was kind of like the side thing. Like my main job was the personal training stuff anyway. So kind of worked
yeah.
well for me. But yeah, there's some keep to it, be consistent
Yeah. That's right.
and slowly do it. That's definitely true. So I know we haven't really talked about your lecturing role yet, but you're lecturing in women's health. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I am lecturing in our Master of Clinical Exercise Physiology at Flinders Uni here in Adelaide. And my goal is to start to slowly bring women's health education more into tertiary education.
Yes.
So the topics that I teach are I teach in clinical assessment and prescription and chronic disease management, and then also in another like final year topic just before the students graduate. And within that topic, I've created like a series of workshops um, based on what ESSA requires students to graduate with. So, for example, one of them is on pregnancy and exercise. One of them is on REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, and LEA, low energy availability. Then I've got one on endometriosis and PCOS. But they are each of them are one workshop that lasts for about 2 to 3 hours each.
Yep.
It's still not enough. It's more than before I got there.
Yep.
And then in the other topics, we used to, before I got there was one lecture on PCOS under type 2 diabetes. Like it was kind of like a,
I was like
tack on the
sandwiched in.
type 2 yeah, like tiniest thing. I said, no, I'm redoing this lecture. So I've done like a whole lecture on just PCOS, added in, real client case studies. So then they unfortunately don't offer any specific women's health topic
Yep.
within
Yep.
the course. But I would love to make that a goal, or it is one of my goals to actually change that, whether it be an elective or something that, a series of weeks in a topic.
Yeah.
But
That'd be good.
unfortunately, like, universities and even ESSA still have, a little bit of distance to make up for women's health in terms of integrating that into the requirements of an ESSA graduate.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, there's a lot that goes into all that anyway. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that's just like all the paperwork and procedures that they have to tick boxes and things like that. But
Yeah.
I remember doing uni and it was like, I think we only ever touched on pregnancy and it was actually mostly in relation to the exercise side
Mm.
in terms of risk for the
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
And like, I think it was like, oh, if you exercise, you reduce their chances of metabolic disease later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty much it. Nothing else was in that. And I mean, I can see that there is a big space for it. Like you look at how many things we do in women's health when it comes to chronic conditions and nothing is touched on really. So it is so great to see that there is something somewhat coming about. Like even 3 hours of each topic that you've done there is like more than what I think PD that I would have done in the first two
Yeah.
years leaving uni, to be honest, because I like there wasn't any.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So, I mean, what I'm waiting for the whole subject of women's health, like a semester, like could be like an
Oh,
actual elective, surely.
yeah, I know. Yeah, I'll keep you updated.
Yeah.
With that.
Let me know if you need someone to teach it.
Yes, I will.
But that is really cool. So, but so you're doing that now, but you're also just about to start a research project,
Yeah.
a third finger in the
Yes.
pie.
So, I have just started my Masters of Health and Clinical Research, which I need to do in order to pave the way into a PhD. So I only need to do 2 topics for that, which is great. So I will be finished by June, and then I need to apply to upgrade to a PhD come the middle of this year. And my topic is obviously based around women's health. So what I've got is how do women with PCOS and endometriosis experience healthcare practitioners' advice about exercise compared to healthy counterparts?
Ooh.
The mouthful.
That's an interesting topic though.
Yes. So we have just got ethics approval, and I can start data collection soon. But I'm super excited. This is something that I've been wanting to do for ages, and this year has ended up being the right time.
That's exciting. So generally, like why is this a topic of interest to you?
Well, working in women's health, you come across a lot of women who have had really bad experiences with one or multiple other allied or medical health professionals. And a lot of them have been given like inappropriate exercise advice that is just not relevant to their life, or exercise advice that has not helped. They haven't been referred on. They end up with an eating disorder or disordered eating because of the exercise or nutrition advice. And a lot of the time it is just they're given quote unquote lifestyle changes.
Yeah. Okay.
And who actually knows what that means. And then the woman goes home and doesn't know what that means. So then can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's that. And then also the big issue of the gender data gap. Like there's just not enough research anywhere for us to start creating like clinical, proper, specific, robust clinical guidelines for any medical allied health professional to really base practice off for endometriosis and PCOS, also other women's health conditions. So I really wanted to initiate this project to get us, firstly, the women's experiences, so the women with PCOS and endometriosis experiences of what they've been told and how it's left them feeling. And then what can we do to change that?
Yeah, right. That is really cool. I when we originally spoke about this and I was thinking more about the gender gap in research, I was thinking about it more in relation to like how we just apply the same kind of theories to women and then ignore the differences between like male anatomy and female anatomy, or like even hormonal cycles and things like that. So like that, like when you look at research, it's always mostly on men. Or if it is on women, it's like, do they even consider different stages of menstrual, their menstrual cycle? But that's kind of like where I thought it was going to be going for you. Like when you were like, oh, the gender gap, I was like, oh yeah, cool. It'll be about like, this type of stuff. But now that you said it like that, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, the gender data gap is huge. Like there's so many ways that it's just that the gap is just like vast, from things like vehicle safety to iPhone, like Siri, iPhone voice recognition, to symptoms of heart attacks for women, to design of cities, like there are so many aspects that we can place the gender data gap from. And exactly like you said, like, we just take what research we've done on men and apply it across to women, hoping that it is fine. But it's not. And it happens as well with like medication dosage as well, because they test it on men. And I think recently I've seen like on social media that people are posting they recommend 8 hours of sleep for men, but they've just noticed that, or they've just researched and proved that women need between 9 to 10 hours of sleep rather than 8. So the general recommendation for everyone is get your 8 hours, which was based on men.
That is so crazy. I am always complaining about being tired.
There you go.
All the time. I'm like, I just feel like I'm not getting enough sleep. And he's like, my partner's like, you've slept for like 8 hours, you're fine. And he's fine. And I'm like, now I
Yeah.
can be like, mate, I actually need 9.
Yeah. There you
I'm
go.
missing an
Now
hour. That's probably why I'm
you have
tired. Like, oh my God,
science to
can you
back
please
it
send me this research paper?
up.
It's like, just print it out and stick it on the bedside table. I'll be like, mate, it's in the research.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, like the gender data gap is just huge. So, you know, even my little study that I'm going to start will do, you know, minimal to help close it. But that's also why I went into lecturing, why I went into research, is because I talk about this and it frustrates me. So I want to do something about it. I want to be that person that steps in and is like, yes, I'm doing my part to pull this gap closer.
Yeah, cool.
Mm.
That's really awesome. I can't wait. So we've this is a little teaser for the second podcast episode that you're going to do once you've done your research paper, and you can
Yes.
tell us all about the data that you found. I'm looking forward to it. Is it just this year that you're doing that data collection, and you'll be published? Are you publishing? It's a paper, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be,
Yeah.
so it'll be my PhD. So it will be like the final will be, I don't know,
That'll be because you have to
6 years.
upgrade,
Yeah.
like transition into a PhD. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm hoping by the time I actually, like within each year, like there will be small little papers or small little parts of research that I'll be able to talk about with data collection and you know, some results. But like the final piece of the puzzle will be many years ahead. But yeah, definitely we'll be able to speak more to that as I start data collection and findings.
Yeah. So cool. I take my hat off to you for even sticking to being able to do the research project for that long. Because like I would just want to know by I want to know by now, like next week.
Yeah.
Like when you say it's like years away, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can even commit to that because I'd be too impatient. So good on you.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes you just can't think about it. Just have to put her along one day at a time.
It's kind of like it is another degree technically, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I remember when we start that and you're like, oh, 4 years.
Yeah, I know. Hey,
Yeah.
it goes quick.
It does go quick. It does. But well, that's pretty much all I wanted to have you chat about today. I feel like we covered quite a bit in a sense of like your journey, business, women's health, research. We've got into all of it. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I want to share a bit more about where people can find you. So tell us about your pages, social media,
Sure.
LinkedIn profiles, whatever you've got. I'll also link them, I think, in the show notes for people to find as well if they can click, but tell us where they are.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram and Facebook just at Seed Exercise Physiology. And I am also on LinkedIn just as Kiara Rocio. I think I also have Seed Exercise Physiology on there too. Or if you want to follow along or have a look a little bit more about like my teaching and research, then you can just find me on People at Flinders University.
Lovely. Very cool. I'll link all of that below. And do you actually use LinkedIn much?
Not as much as I should.
Same. I keep trying to be better at it and then I just forget it's a thing.
I know. You go all out for a bit like, yep, I'm going to do this. And then the next day it's like, I think I've got like a ridiculous amount of notifications on the LinkedIn app on my phone. And
on your phone, it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
I am constantly like, I think I actually put a post up about it this year and I was like, first post on LinkedIn, I'm super keen to share stuff. And I'm like, pretty sure I haven't done anything since then.
There's nothing after that.
There's nothing after that because I'm like, I don't really know how this platform works and I don't know if I care enough.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out. So I don't know what takes off there or what you know,
Yeah,
it's
same.
much more professional. So yeah.
I know, I'm too scared. Everyone's so smart.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to say anything because I'm so bogan. Oh, that's so funny. I'm so glad you feel the same. You can see why we became friends on Instagram and now like moved beyond there.
Yeah. The relationship has evolved.
It has. Well, thanks again. Thank you so much. We'll have another episode with you, but I'll leave all the details below. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.
Great. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks. Bye.